All right, so in the chat, you may have already seen, we have some links to some blogs that will be mentioned throughout the presentation or are related to this presentation. So definitely take a look at those or bookmark them when you get a second. And then, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and a member of my team will go ahead and answer that question, or I will pull up the chat at the end for questions. And my team members will help answer that throughout. So without further ado, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in on this presentation. I know everybody's busy. Make sure this is worth your time. We're going to be discussing today how to track success with your digital marketing campaigns. And really, we're going to be focused on SEO and pay-per-click campaigns within Google and Bing ads, but we will touch on some strategies you can utilize for tracking that really work with any digital campaign. And in the new year, my colleague Justin is going to do a presentation on the more social email marketing related tracking campaign success. So something to look out for, certainly. And I think by the end of this presentation, you should be able to have a really good grasp on what to be looking for if you have some kind of SEO or paid ad campaign running, and really know if your campaign is successful or not, if you're running one now, or what to look for if you're planning on running a campaign in Q4 or in the upcoming year of 2021. So some other, just real quick before we get into it, upcoming webinars, we're starting to space them out every month rather than every 2 weeks. I think that's a little bit more doable for everyone joining in. Our next topic is going to be on email subscribers and how you can grow those. Carly's going to be doing that. And then Justin is going to talk about the fundamentals of social media advertising, which should be a great presentation as well. Have our webinar registration page right there at the bottom. You can easily get to it just by going to webfeatcomplete.com. We have events up in the main navigation. And I would encourage everyone, if you're here, you're probably really eager to learn. And I'd strongly recommend going to the webFEAT Complete blog. Any of my friends that are trying to get into marketing in general, when they ask me for resources to get started, the first place I point them now is the webFEAT Complete blog, because we have at least one blog coming out a week, and we're not doing those little blogs that you find a lot of companies doing. What to look for in a good SEO company. We're going in depth on really helpful topics. Like I said, that could be helpful and provide a lot of value to you. So I'd strongly recommend checking that out. Thanks for sharing that link, Justin. And anyone that's returning, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but we just like to give a little background on our credentials, what we're doing to gain experience. We recently, if you're familiar with Moz, really popular in the digital marketing industry. One member of our SEO department, Jake, attended that. Really great stuff. I'm going to be going to a conference in November, depending on how everything goes with COVID and all of that. So we're constantly looking to learn and gather insights and apply strategies, new strategies to our clients that will help give them a competitive edge. We hope that'll be evident in this presentation and our upcoming ones. So with that, we can get into our agenda, talk about goal setting, the process for, a lot of this is going to be dependent on your goals or, what specifically you're doing, if you're doing both paid ads and SEO. And we'll get into that on each topic, but process, corresponding measurements, we'll go through some examples, give you a little background, kind of tie it all together with specific areas of tracking. We'll give some timeline estimates. We always get questions about, how long should we expect until we see results? So we'll give a little bit of clarification there, but again, there's a lot of things that's dependent on. Google Tag Manager, click tracking, events and conversions, really going to be at the base of our tracking and how to measure success. But also we utilize Google Analytics, Search Console, SpyFu, Semrush. And we'll talk a little bit about Google and Bing ads and the unique tracking identifiers there, how you can tie it into Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics. And then UTM tracking is what I was referencing initially with newsletter, email marketing campaigns. You could really use them with ads too. There's tracking parameters you can add, or in the final URL, we'll talk about that. And we are offering free audits now and always, so we'll discuss that at the end as well, and would definitely encourage anyone here for their business or someone they know, let them know about a free audit. We're happy to do those, no obligations. All right, so let's get into it. We'll just check real quick, make sure there's nothing in the chat. All right. So setting goals. Your goals are going to really set up and determine how we measure success with a campaign. For instance, if you are a company that is developing an e-commerce site, or you have an e-commerce site, you're probably going to ultimately look to grow transactions and revenue to that site, or maybe you want to increase conversion rate. But usually that all comes down to generating more transactions and revenue. But then there's companies, maybe someone that sells major equipment, not something you just buy online. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single piece of equipment. They probably have some PDF brochures or spec sheets on their site that they would want to track the downloads to see they're getting a little more engagement. But also in part with that, maybe they want to track phone calls, form submissions. You're not really limited to just tracking one of these. We try to track as much as possible and gather insights from that, but just something to be aware of. So also, tracking phone calls. A lot of times you'll see links, especially with mobile, on emails, little mail to links, telephone number links, mail to : how those are set up, and we track them. But then there's also cases where, and mostly applying to Google Ads, with this one, you just want to increase exposure right away. So maybe you're just looking at appearances in search, otherwise referred to as impressions, or maybe somebody's bidding on your brand name. So you run a branded ad campaign, and your goal is to just appear at the very top of the page every time that someone searches for your brand name. So that could be your only goal. And just have a little screen cap here of what this is, goals under settings in Google Analytics. And we just have, you outline it here. Basically, we set up, and we'll get into this, event tracking in Google Tag Manager, but you can also do destination tracking. So let's say you have a form, in this case, a request a quote form, and once somebody submits that form, they go to a thank you page. So you can just track visits to that thank you page, basically to confirm that someone filled that out. So it's literally called goals in there, but we'll get into all that. So the process and corresponding measurements, it's going to be different based on your strategies and goals, as I said. So let's start out with an example of an SEO process. Let's say you are a new company, you haven't had a website before, no domain or historical ranking value at all. So what's the process going to look like on that? First of all, we are very transparent and set expectations based on goals with our clients. Don't want there to ever be any miscommunication with that, and it really makes things flow very smoothly. So, you can't expect to have a brand new domain and then be ranking and generating leads or sales on your website in a couple of months. That just typically doesn't work out. There's so much competition online nowadays, and so many factors that go into ranking in Google because of that. So the process really, we want to, first of all, get your ranking. A lot of companies start out with just appearing for their name in branded searches. So we try to expand that to non-branded searches. So for example, with webFEAT, if we were new, we would maybe start only appearing for webFEAT, webFEAT Complete, webFEAT Complete SEO, branded searches like that. And we would want to progress the number of phrases that we're ranking for, and with that, the amount we're appearing in search results. So, starting to rank for phrases like digital marketing in Cincinnati, or social media advertising Denver, things like that. And then we want to start, you start to get into the search results, but once when you're initially placed, you probably have a pretty poor ranking. You might see average position 95 in Search Console, or 130, somewhere you're not going to be found in the search results. So you want to start to progress, get into the top 5 pages, and that's where you should really start to hone in and verify anything that you thought was going to be a valuable search phrase. You should be able to verify that and start narrowing your focus on that to progress those key rankings to the first page. From there, you'll start to see traffic pick up, even more appearances, and then we'll really work on gathering data, making database improvements to drive more conversions, whatever your desired goals, conversions may be. And it's entirely possible that maybe a website does have some historical ranking value. It's been around for a while, and we might jump in the middle of this process, grow, maybe start to look at growing phrases in the number of or the number of search phrases in the top 5 pages of search results. So, maybe we jump in with a client, they've had some fluctuations or have been trending downward, maybe not happy with their existing company. And so we look to jump in, maybe they're already ranking for the phrases that they want to rank well for. They're just not really getting past that threshold of, the top 5 pages. So it's highly possible we could jump in at a different place, all dependent on your situation. And so in part with this process, we utilize Search Console, SpyFu, Semrush, and Google Analytics to really measure data in a number of ways. So, Search Console, we can start to look at impressions, the growth, number of appearances in search. We can see the phrases that are ranking in Google. SpyFu lets us see the number of phrases we're working, or we have ranking in the top 50 search results. And all this can be visualized too. There's graphs, and these will come up in the next slide. Position tracking, specific traffic from search and other reports, and then that data in Google Analytics that's most important, that conversion and e-commerce data. So we'll get into that here after we go through another process and measurements. Example of Google Ads. Google Ads really dependent on what you're trying to do. So first of all, the one example I already referenced was if you're running a branded campaign. So let's say you want to see how you're looking in the search results, you put something on your business listing, something along those lines. So I type in webFEAT complete into the search results, and I see that somebody else, a competitor that I'm aware of or not, is bidding on my brand name and trying to basically directly steal competitors. Yes, believe it or not, this is legal. You can try to run trademark complaints with Google, but a lot of times they're very stringent on who they accept as far as that goes, because of course they're trying to make money. They want those ads to continue running. So in that case, you might just want to be appearing on top for your brand name, searches for your brand name at all times. And in that case, that's a quick goal to meet. We can set a bid strategy where you want to have, appear at the absolute top of the page 100% of the time. And we can easily show that data in Google Analytics. Maybe another quick result example would be running a display campaign or a marketing campaign where you're trying to just keep top of mind, get a lot of impressions, appearances in search, and exposure. So you're not really looking for conversions, and that's something that can ramp up quickly. And then you have, a search text campaign. So those ads you see at the top of the search results, maybe you go in and you do a search for, TVs or, 65-inch HD TV, and you see all these ads come up. You got the organic listings too, maybe get a Best Buy local map pack listing with some other local places that you can buy these TVs. Those are going to take a little bit longer because, you got to ramp up, and whether you're throwing everything at the wall and then narrowing it down from there, or starting narrow and broadening, it takes time to gather data on that and then refine it to get those conversions and make sure your ads have a high click-through rate. The number of clicks you're getting per impression. So clicks over impressions or appearances in search gives you click-through rate. It really shows how your ads are resonating with people. But then there's also, with the first week or two, you have a learning period that Google incurs, where their algorithm tries to understand what you have set up and ultimately help your ads appear in the right place. So, really no matter what, you should be looking for about a week where things might be a little slow to ramp up. If you have a simple goal to reach, it'll go quickly. You can move quickly, but ultimately you should expect 1 to 2 months to really start to refine and get ROI with a conversion-based campaign. I'm seeing the chat pop up here. Why does Google require an email that matches your URL? I have never had that happen. You can email me this email address just with a little more detail on your example, and I could try to help you out with that. I've never had them require to match that. I know that they've had with Google My Business. Sometimes you can go to try and verify your listing in a different way than sending a postcard out and getting a code. I know that in that case, you have to have a domain basically associated with your email that helps you or matches with the brand name basically. But as far as Google Ads goes, you should not have to have an email that matches your URL. So like I said, just email me and then we can work through that together after this presentation. And Jake, if you have any additional feedback on that, please jump in and help out if you wouldn't mind. Sorry, I couldn't give you a direct answer on that right now. Just never had that experience before, but I'm sure we can get it resolved for you. So with these examples, the corresponding measurements that we're going to be looking at, really we can tie everything together with Google Analytics, Tag Manager, and Google Ads. So for example, if I set up something in Google Tag Manager, it's going to populate in Google Analytics, and I'll probably convert those events that I set up into conversions goals specifically. And once I do that, if I have the ads account set up to tie together with Google Analytics, I'll be able to import those goals into Google Analytics. So really easy to tie that in and make sure you're tracking those conversions. But then there are some unique features. So you may have seen if you're searching for something on your cell phone in Google and a little call button comes up, that's called a call extension. And those are uniquely tracked in Google Ads. So some unique items to look in there. And you can segment all that out, which I'll show in a bit here. So, you're gonna wanna look at impressions, appearances in search, conversions, cost per conversion, if that's what you're going for, and then some other things to look at just to kind of get an idea of if your ads are resonating with users or not. Click-through rate, again, if your ads are appearing thousands of times, you've only received like 2 clicks, your click-through rate is going to be really low, and Google is going to expect that that's going to continue, and it's going to harm where you're placed potentially. So we look at things like that. Of course, you want to keep average cost per click in mind as well. So a lot to look at in there, but ultimately you'll be able to find all the data you'd like in Google Analytics or in the basic Google Ads interface. And this same, I have Google Ads on here, but this could definitely apply to Bing Ads as well. So timeline estimates. With paid ad campaigns, kind of already touched on this, you should expect at least 1 to 2 weeks with the learning period to ramp up. If you're going for conversions, truly refining account, 1 to 2 months, sometimes longer. We've seen longer, just also depends on how competitive the industry is. This is the kind of competitiveness and complexity is compounded with an SEO campaign, depending on a lot of factors. How much competition's there, how much ranking value do your competitors and you have within search. And if we take action right away, which we always do, we set up this tracking, get research started, put some fundamental items in place, maybe update some meta information based on quick initial research that we'll update again later. We can start to see initial indicators start moving the needle 1 to 2 months in. We might see appearances start to grow, number of search phrases in the top 5 pages start to grow. But to truly see an impact and look at driving traffic and generating conversions, we look to the 6 to 12 month window most of the time. And again, this is completely dependent. We never give guarantees. I think I did publish a blog post about how you should basically avoid companies that are Jake, if you wouldn't mind finding this and sharing it as well. I don't think I had it in the list. companies will say, we guarantee rankings for $250 in 2 weeks. You should run away as soon as you see that, because it just isn't going to happen. SEO is a long-term investment. There's a blog article that I shared as well on why SEO should be ongoing and not long-term, because you shouldn't go into an SEO campaign expecting, all right, let's do this for 3 months, get some value out of it, and then leave, because your graph's going to kind of go just up and down. It's not going to last. It's not sustainable. You need to gather data. And after a year, especially, you start to get year-over-year data that you can compare. And you just start to get so many insights from that and can make more data-based decisions that will really make your SEO campaign pop, traffic pop. And then you start to see a lot of that. A lot of value, a lot of return on investment is possible. Here, it looks like Jake did. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for responding to that question, Jake. All right, so Google Tag Manager, click tracking, events, and conversions. I'm going to be kind of broad on this, but another one of the links, I did a really detailed article on step-by-step how to set this up. If that's what you're looking to do, you're looking to do this on your own. But tracking should be the first or one of the first things that you take care of if whether you have a client you're working for or you're running your marketing and you want to make sure you have the right tracking in place. Have to set this up first and foremost, because otherwise you don't really know if your efforts are working. You can't attribute back to anything, and you can't tell if you're moving the needle. So have to set up tracking. I'll be the first to admit, when Google rolled out Google Tag Manager a couple of years ago, not that I was skeptical, but I was hesitant to get involved in it because I thought it would take a lot of time to learn and understand Tag Manager to the point where it wouldn't be worth it. And then I really got into it and realized that you get the feel for it and it's quite easy. And the capabilities that it has within there are incredible. It's not just, you don't just tie in Google Analytics, you can also tie in social media, so many other things, and it just has a lot of benefits. So it's easy to install. It's just a simple set of scripts you put in the header and the body. And then from there, you really just set up tags and triggers for those tags. So the easiest example is Google Analytics. Set up your Tag Manager account, get that code installed. I want to make sure Google Analytics is there. All you have to do is set up a tag. It says Google Analytics. You select Universal Analytics, put in your tracking number. Page view would be the type of tag. And to trigger it, the only trigger is all pages, basically saying, I want Google Analytics to be triggered anytime someone's on a page. And then you're able to publish that. And a great thing about Tag Manager too is, let's say you're rebuilding a website or you're starting a new website and you just want to get the ball rolling, get as much taken out as possible. You can put that code on the site, but not publish the container or workspace is what it's called in Google Tag Manager. So basically you can put it on the site, have it there, and then when the site launches or relaunches, all you have to do is click publish instead of going through the whole process of setting up your analytics, maybe creating a new one, making that tag and trigger, doing all of that. And you can also take notes so that if anything goes wrong, you have notes to look back on exactly what you did. And it's a very user-friendly interface. And this is just kind of a screenshot of what that looks like. So then the next example would be if I'm setting up an event, which is usually how we track. Let's say you have a link to an email on your contact page, and it says mail to sales@yourcompany.com. And if somebody clicks that, it pulls up their Outlook and they can send you an email very easily. So we would set up a tag for event tracking, and basically put some information in your Google Analytics UAID, and then the trigger on that, you would have to use a preview function in Tag Manager, kind of identify the trigger, but it's usually pretty straightforward. You could just say, set a variable, click URL equals or contains mail to : you could write out the whole thing if you have multiple emails on there, but then that'll be tracked as an event. And with that event, you go into the goals section of Google Analytics. You put the labels that you put in there, you name it, and then every time that event occurs, it will populate in the conversions goals report, and that just lays out that information a little bit more cleanly. You'll always have access to just direct events data in a report in Google Analytics on that too, which I'll show you here in a second. But very straightforward. Love Google Tag Manager. Our whole team uses it. Really recommend checking out that blog and getting a feel for it if you're going to be looking to track things, because it can bring a lot of value to any company. So Google Analytics, there's so much, really every step of the measurement process, regardless of your campaign, you can look back at Google Analytics and gather a lot of insights. I mean, you can segment data, you can compare data, you can tie improvements back by annotating, tie them back to your efforts, I should say. And so I'll just go through each little screen cap here. I'll give you a better idea of what I mean. So as far as segmenting goes, if I'm running an SEO campaign, search traffic or organic traffic is what matters most. So in this case, you select organic traffic, then Google's going to process everything and just show you the search traffic data. So that could be Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Baidu, all that good stuff. And you'll be able to get graphs. I think I have a next slide like that one right there that will show you that. So, you could look, maybe you are finishing up a campaign or, an SEO campaign that's been 12 months and you want to look at that data for that period of time, and you hopefully can show a graph just like this to your client or your boss, the CEO, whoever, that, hey, our search traffic is steadily grown. This proves it right here. So that's great to look at. And you can keep it segmented like that. You could switch back and forth to all traffic, referral traffic, all different kinds of things. Up here we have the conversions report, and this is all these are in the left-hand side navigation of Google Analytics. You got all these great reports where you can pull conversion data, e-commerce tracking data, and I have some more on the next slide on that as well. You have all campaigns is with UTM tracking, which we'll get into later. You have events here where you can look at that, and that was what I was referencing. This data doesn't look that clean in the Google Analytic report. So when you convert it to a goal, it just looks better, and it allows you to import it into Google Ads if you're running a PPC campaign now or later on. So good to utilize. You can break down traffic by channel. So, is my traffic coming from search? Is it coming from social media, email campaigns? Are people coming direct? Over time, you can compare the change in that. So maybe year over year, you want to see how things are changing. Maybe, wow, social media was up 40% this year and those people were converting. We should probably invest some more money into social media, test out some social media ads, things like that. Lots of data that can help you make, data-backed decisions that often have the chance to make your campaign more effective and deliver higher return on investment. And then there's also annotating. So with the graphs like this, you can see, for example, we did something here and here, and you can kind of look at the after effects of your changes. And if I were to click on that in Google Analytics, it would pop up and show me exactly what I wrote. So let's say I started up and I updated all of the meta information, basically what appears as the link in the description in Google search results, to be more targeted. And then as a result of that, we saw, increased traffic because we're hitting our target better. Everything's more relevant to what's on the page. Could go into that really far in detail, but just for the sake of keeping it simple with this presentation, you can attribute back some of your growth to a recent effort that you made. And the same thing happens with this goal conversion goals section. It'll show you all the goals and which ones you completed or which ones were completed. So RFQ, PDF download, phone calls, mail to click, and you can look at the source of those. And this is evident in these reports as well on the far right side of them. But you can go into the conversion tracking and specifically look at, okay, so over the past 7 days, we got an RFQ form from Bing ads. We got a lead from organic search in Google. Somebody clicked through from our email campaign, signed up for a newsletter, things like that. And over time, as you can imagine, you have a bigger data set. That information is only going to get better and better, and you'll be able to make, enhanced, more effective decisions. So really, really great stuff. And then over here, we take a look at, where is it here? All traffic channels. So these are channels, search traffic directly to your website, some anonymous data, backlinks. So if you got a website or a link to your website on another website, that's a referral. Social media, paid search campaigns, email, display ads. And then you could break that down further. So instead of just organic search, you can see what kind of organic search. So there's probably another one right down here in the 7th or 8th spot that says Bing organic or Yahoo organic. It kind of allows you to break all that down, look at specific metrics like bounce rate, the average pages viewed per session. You can also look at the goal completions from that or e-commerce data, and then that will allow you, you can see that growth. And really you can turn any of this stuff, because as you're looking through this, as every time I look through this, I start playing with graphs and trying to gather insights. And you can really create graphs and get the specific information you're looking for really with any of this. So, whether you have, this is a goal completion graph that shows the growth, you could do the same thing for traffic, organic traffic, social media ad or PPC traffic. Google Analytics, long story long, is just an incredible resource, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. All right, so then we have Search Console, another incredible resource that is really something that I look to, especially in the beginning of campaigns, but you can gather insights over time, and it even will present to you issues that Google's bots are seeing that you can go in, fix, and then validate directly with Google. So it can be super helpful. In this case, this graph here shows, somebody we started with and they were basically non-existent in the search results. I don't recall who this was, if it was a new site or they just weren't ranking well. But one of the first steps in the measurement process with an SEO campaign, as we noted, is begin to rank, grow the number of search phrases you're ranking for, and search appearances. So appearances are going to grow too as you begin to rank for more phrases. So kind of goes hand in hand. And that's, if you're a couple months into an SEO campaign and you can show this graph of, hey, you went from not appearing in search at all to appearing sometimes almost 375 times a day. Even if you're not ranking well yet, that's a really good indicator, something you can look at. And if you want to get specific, you can put a filter on. So, maybe you want to filter by search query. And, let's say in our case, we want to look at how traffic in Cleveland is growing for us. So Cleveland, specifically geo-modified searches. So I would click queries containing and type in Cleveland. It would filter all the data to just show me search phrases that we're appearing for in Cleveland and give me graphs. I can look at impressions, clicks to our website, click-through rate, average position, and then I can also see the verbiage that's there, and it does, that we're appearing for, what we're getting clicks for, or appearing in search for. And in the beginning of the campaign, this is also really helpful too, because you can see, maybe you're a new website and you just launched, you're probably going to start off by just getting clicks to your site for your brand name. So, webFEAT, we're new, webFEAT complete. I think I may have said this in the beginning. We would want to start to rank for, SEO Cincinnati or web design Cleveland, things like that. And over time, you'll find longer and longer tail search phrases that get more and more specific, and that just kind of snowball effects and will help you sustain your growth. So Search Console is great. A lot of great insights there. You can take, you start to see those search phrases appearing. Maybe people are asking questions that you appeared for. You can enhance a piece of content you have, add some content that will help you rank and address user questions and hesitations and ultimately help them convert or fill out a form to, some kind of conversion. So a lot to be gathered from there. You can build in verbiage into your content. Just a really great resource as well. And Google's constantly updating their products, so they're getting better every really month, week, sometimes at this point. So you started to rank, you started to appear in search more often, you're appearing for more phrases. You can see what you're ranking for. You've probably done a lot of research and are targeting more appropriately now. And you want to really start to make progress. This can be the point where if you're not transparent with a client or your boss, it can get hard, because you might, this might be around, let's say the 3 to 5 or 6 month range. And, you got all these good indicators. You're appearing more in search. Your rankings are progressing. You could show this graph. You're getting more rankings in the first page. But if you're not transparent about the process from the get-go, all that your client is going to see or your boss may see is, well, we're not getting more leads and we're not getting much more traffic to the website. So why is this a good investment to me? So you want to hit home again on the fact that you really need to be transparent with your client or your boss as far as this goes. But this is the next item to look. You want to move the needle on. So this graph is over a 2-year span. Went from ranking for about 200 phrases in the top 5 pages of search results to over 500. Amazing. And you can put competitors into this same graph and compare, which is really great. I've loved showing this to clients. Hey, we just surpassed your top competitor with the number of phrases we're ranking for. So that can be really helpful. And something you want to look at. SpyFu, you can use it free. It'll show you, a limited amount of information, of course. You can only do one search. You'd have to X out and do it again or go incognito if you wanted to find a loophole, beat the system. But if you want to pay for it, it's pretty inexpensive. I want to say it's maybe $100 or $200 a year at this point. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I remember. Really great. You can get some pretty accurate information on phrases your competitors are ranking for. You can see information like this and really dive in. So it also shows, algorithm updates. So I took them out of this, but it would say, Google Panda and populate right here or something like that. And so that can also kind of add another layer with annotating. As you can in Google Analytics with your changes. You can also see Google algorithm changes, and Semrush does this too, which is coming up in a second. Kind of give you more insights, more information on why your rankings might be going down, up, or fluctuating. So really helpful tool in measurement. Then we get into Semrush. So you're progressing into the top 5 pages. Your phrases that are most valuable to you at this point, or at least you should. Those should be put in, we use Semrush, really great platform. And really we do our research and get these in early so we can track for a longer period of time. But basically, this is a tool called position tracking. So we enter our most valuable phrases, or the phrases that the client has identified they would like to rank for. And you can look at tracking over a long period of time with this. It'll help you kind of maintain rankings, look to grow them, see fluctuations, see new features that have come into the search results are kind of noted. You can see their version of annotations here. If I were to click on this, it would show me a Google update of some sort. So, that could help me understand what's going on with my rankings and the result of my efforts with an SEO campaign. So, or yours, I should say. And, in this case, we see average position. And average position is more valid here than in Google Search Console because it's with specific phrases that you know are valuable to you. Whereas Google Search Console might have some in there that aren't as valuable to you, and there's so many long tail phrases that it's just not a good indicator. So in this case, though, average position of our key valuable phrases, we went from around the fourth, fifth page, starting to see on average up by the second page, which, of course we want to be on the first page, but, there were some algorithm updates. We made a change here, clearly worked out for us. And then you can just kind of continue to build on that. So Semrush is a really great tool, kind of simplifies Search Console, as I said, to just get the key takeaways. And then Semrush, of course, as a platform as a whole, has a lot of great tools that can help you improve your SEO efforts. There's paid campaign tools in there as well, social media. More for an agency or a big company, I would say it can get to be expensive depending on how much you're utilizing it. All right, just want to make sure, okay, no chat messages. So then we get into Google and Bing ads. There are some unique tracking items in there. So if you've ever gone on your phone, you got the click call extension. It just looks like a little phone. You click it and you can call. That tracks directly in Google. And you can tie it. It ties back into Google Analytics, but it's easier to just look at in Google Ads. But as I said, you can import those goals you set up. So you set up tracking in Google Tag Manager as an event, converted it to a goal in Google Analytics, and then you tie your analytics and Google Ads account together, and you can import those goals into Google Ads. So setting up tracking is really a breeze, and you have all that information easily accessible, really easy. Bing does it in a different way. I'm not a huge fan or too well versed in it either at this point. So we'll put out a blog on that soon. But with Google or Bing ads, and really any email marketing, social media campaigns, social media ads, anywhere you're putting a link, you can use UTM tracking, which is the next slide coming up here too. So I won't go too far into it, but sets up a link, basically can help you track to show up in this report here, the campaigns report. So we'll get into that in a second. But you can see here, you can segment conversions by campaign, down to the action in Google Ads. So you could have a campaign running, see that you have 5 conversions, segment by conversion action, and see that you had, 3 form submissions and 2 email link clicks or something like that. And this would be visible in Google Analytics too, but easy to just look at while you're in Google Ads working on it. You can see the number of conversions you have and the cost per conversion, which, huge for communicating to your boss or client, because, they know their margins, they know, that target that they would like to be spending on marketing, as opposed to how much their product or service costs, to make sure they're getting a return on investment. So, I know in this case, this client is really happy that we got below $1 per conversion. I think we inherited this campaign, and when it started, it was like well over like $2.50 or something. And a lot of that was the cost per conversion was coming down because a big part of the campaign was just branded search. So, and that's not present now. We still got it down. So things you can really report on that look good to your boss, look good to your client, and you can get to conversions and break it down if you don't want to look by action. You can go into tools and settings, conversions. I think one of the links I shared was how you should be in expert mode and not the simplified version of Google Ads. Otherwise, you might not be able to access features like this. So definitely utilize expert mode if you are running an ad campaign. Grab a swig of water here. All right. So UTM tracking, really simple. I did not. I think I shared the link on this as well. Basically what UTM tracking does is it takes a standard link. So let's say I am running an email marketing campaign and I have a button link to a request a quote form or a contact us page. And I want to be able to track how many people, track definitively how many people click to that, and then also tie it into, did they fill out the form? Did they sign up for a newsletter? Did they make a purchase? Any of that other stuff that we're tracking in Google Analytics, this will allow us to do that. So, let's say we have here, I just did a simple example where I typed it into this builder, which is accessible via that link on UTM Tracking that we shared at the beginning. So let's say I wanted to do this for Google Ads. That's what I did in this example. So I put my, webfeatcomplete.com. I said the source is Google. The medium is cost per click, or, PPC campaign. And then the specific, you can get even more specific. So I said, the end of 2020 campaign. With that will filter in to your campaigns report in Google Analytics, and you'll be able to pull graphs, see the number of people that came, how much time they spent on the page, if they converted at all. And you can do that on email marketing links. You can set up the parameters in Google or Bing Ads or any advertising platform, or you can just put it directly in the final URL. And it's just, it's a good link. You could do it. I've seen people do it on your Google My Business listing to kind of differentiate that so it doesn't get funneled into just general organic search. There's a lot that you can do with it. So Google UTM, not even really just Google specific, but UTM tracking. I guess since this whole presentation has been focused on SEO and PPC, you can use it with SEO and PPC efforts, but it can also be used with social media, email marketing. If you have a backlink on a website and you want to see, let's say you're going to an event and they ask you for a link to your website, you could create it where it's, your website, event, backlink, name it whatever you want, and then that would be categorized and kind of filled into a report on Google Analytics so you can gather insights about it and know, maybe for the next time you do that event, if it was successful and drove some good traffic, you might want to make sure it's up sooner, or if they have some kind of advertising campaign, whatever website you're on, you might want to invest there as well. So I think a big takeaway from this whole presentation and setting up tracking is that when you set up good tracking, it helps you identify what's working, what's not, what matters to users, what doesn't. And you can take that information and apply it to your strategies, but then you can also use it to enhance your decision making and generate more return on your marketing investment from that decision making and your general digital marketing efforts. So set up tracking. If you're starting a campaign, set up tracking. If you have a campaign running and you don't feel like you have the appropriate tracking, I've mentioned this in blogs. I probably mentioned it on a previous webinar. Our CEO, Michelle, used to have something in the bottom of her email signature that said, it's like a Chinese proverb, and it says, best time to plant a seed was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So set up that tracking and it will help you make decisions and learn a lot about what's going on with your website, make good decisions from it, and ultimately make your company or your client more money, which always has positive benefits. And right now we're doing free SEO audits. So if you're wondering about your tracking, we can check that out. If you're wondering about an SEO campaign that someone else is running, you've run in the past, or just how your website's doing right now, we would love to check it out, free of charge, no obligations at all. We're not pushy or anything like that. We do this for social media. We'd be happy to do it for a paid campaign. Content evaluation. So if you'd like a free audit, please go ahead and you can go to our website to reach out. I'll also type in sales@webfeatcomplete.com here so you have that email as well. But we'd be happy to do an audit for you, and if you're just looking to get tracking set up appropriately, we can help you with that. I think the blogs we sent are going to be great resources. WebFEAT Complete blogs are a great resource. And my email was shared in the chat as well. More than happy to help you out, and would love to partner up with you and really ramp up some efforts and deliver your boss or your client ROI or more ROI. And with that, does anyone have any additional questions for me?